Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I update stories from time to time, but usually updates take a while. This one did not. Joe sent me notes to Steve. You just did the video on this. The update is here. From WWMT, Allie Jenner John wrote, St. Joseph County Sheriff sentenced to a year probation for alleged drunk driving. We do not need to say alleged anymore because of the guilty pleas. St. Joseph County Sheriff will serve a year-long probation period after he pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges at Kalamazoo County Court Monday. His probationary period will coincide with treatment, but he will not serve any jail time if he follows all the conditions of the probation. In addition, he cannot consume alcohol or be inside a bar. He is subject to random drug and alcohol testing, and he cannot carry a gun. He also owes hundreds of dollars in fines, the judge said, but I suspect that's more like thousands of dollars if you add up all of the probation oversight costs, the costs of the testing, and so on. Charges for operating while intoxicated and carrying a concealed weapon while under the influence were filed not so long ago. When given a chance to speak in court Monday, he issued an apology. I'd like to say that I'm sorry for those involved in the incident on that night. Everyone that had to respond or anybody that was involved in that. I also want to say sorry to the citizens that I represent and people that work at the St. Joseph County Sheriff's Department. I let them down. I just wanted everyone to know that I was in a dark place prior to that incident. I have taken aggressive steps to ensure this type of behavior will not repeat itself. Now, his attorney said that the sheriff went to rehab and sought further professional help. And by the way, that's something that attorneys know, that if your client's facing a very, very ugly thing in court and it involves alcohol, you start the rehab before sentencing. And it indicates that you're on the right track, but at the first time at the arraignment, he accepted the responsibility to all the charges, and that's the main thing he wants the community to know. He's here, he's accepted responsibility, and he's moving on. Meanwhile, the attorney was asked if the sheriff could still be effective in the job of sheriff, to which the attorney responded, of course he can be effective. It just broadens his perspective now. He's been through it. So yeah, I think he'll be very effective, and my advice to him is not to retire. I think he's been a great sheriff for a long time. He's been in law enforcement for 30 years. Of course, the problem here is the example he sets. And don't forget, not only was he drunk, not only did he cause an accident, but when the police showed up in the form of state troopers, he was uncooperative with them. And we've all seen the videos where people are uncooperative with the police. And the police often say, if people would simply cooperate with us, these things wouldn't happen. Well, here is a sheriff, not a sheriff's deputy, a sheriff who wasn't cooperating with the state police. Who was driving his car? I don't know. Well, isn't this your car? Yeah. There's no one else around. Was someone else driving your car? I don't know. So the man's 47 years old, and he ran into the back of another vehicle on US 131 back in February, according to the report from the Michigan State Police. In court on Monday, he told the judge his blood alcohol content was 0.25. So more than 3 times the lower limit for drinking and driving. And keep in mind, and some people are going to say, wait, he told the judge that? Yes, he did. And this article here doesn't come out and explain exactly what goes on in court, but I've handled drunk driving cases before. And so if you enter a plea of guilty, you don't just go, I'm guilty, and you get sentenced. A judge will walk you through and make you explain what you did, so you can't later say, oh, I didn't know I was pleading guilty, or oh, there weren't facts to support this. So a judge might say, were you driving your vehicle on this date? Yes. Prior to driving the vehicle, had you had anything to drink? Yes. What did you have to drink? When did you drink it in relation to when you got in the car and drove? Okay, so you had 19 beers. I'm making stuff up here. You had 19 beers before you got in the car and drove. Do you think it affected your ability to drive? Yes. Okay. Do you want to plead guilty? Yes. Do you want to plead guilty because you are in fact guilty? Has anybody promised you or threatened you or done anything to make you do this against your will? No. Okay, so you're doing this freely and voluntarily. Yes. And then they turn to the attorney and say, counselor, Would you agree with me that this is the proper basis for a guilty plea? Yes. Okay, court will accept your guilty plea. And so they would ask him, along with all these other questions, do you know what your blood alcohol content was? Did you blow a breathalyzer? Did you get blood samples taken? What was happening? And go through that also, okay? So according to the report, he's told the police, I'm just going to tell you I'm not sure what happened. And it is what it is. He had bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, staggered while walking, and denied being the driver of the vehicle. When troopers asked him who was driving, he responded with, I have no idea, to be honest with you. Bad, 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 but no, I don't. He obviously appeared to be intoxicated, according to another witness who used the word obviously. And on the body cam video, a witness says he couldn't even stand up and talk. Obviously, it appears he was intoxicated. Now, he testified that he had the blood alcohol content of 0.25. During a search of his county-issued vehicle, they did find the pistols, the rifle, and some ammunition, which I guess he'd be carrying as part of his job, except that does not excuse him for having them in the car while he's drunk. He was arrested, charged with intoxication while driving and possessing a firearm while drunk, and under Michigan law, either one of those are punishable by up to 93 days in jail. So he would not consent to the field sobriety test, preliminary breath test, so they took him to the hospital, they drew his blood, and there it was a 0.25. Now, what I'm going to tell you is this. I have handled quite a few drunk driving cases. Haven't in a while, but I used to do quite a few of them. And in Michigan, in most instances, 99.9% of the time, a person on a first offense, if nothing else happened, nothing crazy happened, just a first offense, drunk driving, is probably not going to jail. They could go to jail, but they're not. And they'll be given this opportunity where they'll say, we're going to put you on probation. And if you follow all the terms of your probation, then you won't go to jail. And the probation, as you'll notice, is longer than the jail term. So jail could be 93 days, but the probation's 1 year. So theoretically, this guy could get 6 months through probation, screw up, and go to jail. Probably not going to happen. Most people figure this out pretty quickly that, I'm better off not in jail. Makes it hard to be sheriff when you're in jail. So, most people don't go to jail on a first offense. There are exceptions. There are a couple of judges out there who like to throw everyone in jail. I know a couple of them. And also, the fact that he blew a .25 and had these other issues with what was in his car and who he is certainly could have led to a more incarcerated sentence. Going to jail versus not going to jail. Okay? Okay. So, what he got here was pretty much what the average person would get. That's simply one point I'm trying to make. However, I'm telling you that I do not agree with this in this case. I personally believe that if there are factors working against you, the judge should look at you and go, okay, should this person then go to jail because of these extra factors? And one of the extra factors here is that he is the sheriff of the next door county. He's the sheriff. And when law enforcement officers showed up and asked him what happened, he claimed to not know. And it appears, reading between the lines, that he was uncooperative with them. Now, the fact that he's drinking and driving while he's the sheriff is also a problem. And I think also that right there should make jail an appropriate thing. Because people do look at those in charge, especially elected officials, especially law enforcement, and expect them to abide by the law. And it does really hurt the image of the police when their own people are out breaking the law and the leader of the sheriff's department, the sheriff himself, is out drinking and driving and not cooperating with the police. And I want to keep throwing that in there because that's extremely important. And I've done videos before about how to behave during a traffic stop when a police officer approaches your car. And I always suggest that if you cooperate with them, you're more likely to get a break than if you don't cooperate with them. But the point simply is, the police showed up at an accident scene and asked the guy who caused the accident what happened, and he said, I don't know. Is this your car? Yeah. Were you driving it? I don't know. I don't really know what happened. Someone else is driving. Who? Who else is driving your car? Are you saying you're the passenger in that car? Now, he's going to try and say, presumably, that he was so drunk he doesn't remember what happened. Okay, let's now back up to the .25 that he had when they got his blood at the hospital. And I'm not sure how long that was after the accident, keeping in mind that your blood alcohol content does tend to go down over time unless you're still drinking, but I don't think he was. So the police show up at the scene, and let's assume for a split second he doesn't know what happened. Let's say he's that drunk. We've all heard about it where people get blackout drunk where they're still doing things, but the next day they're like, I don't know what I did yesterday. I don't remember what I did. I was so drunk, I don't know what was going on. Do you know what? And I've met people who've had that happen to them. The point is that if you get so drunk that you don't know anything, you shouldn't get behind the wheel of a car. And now you might say, but Steve, if he's so drunk he doesn't know what he's doing, getting behind the wheel of the car might be something that he couldn't control. Well, keep in mind that I don't think he ever alleged that somebody put a gun to his head and said, here, drink this. Self-induced. This is his own fault. He's the one who chose to get that drunk. If he got so blackout drunk that he couldn't remember how he got to where he was and he ran into another vehicle, whose fault is that? And that is a display, a horrible display of judgment. That is the worst kind of judgment. And again, the man's a sheriff. Now, he says he was in a dark place. He was in a dark place. I don't doubt that for a second. I think we've all been in dark places, but how we handle the dark places we get ourselves into varies from person to person. But add to the equation that he had the guns in the car and he was so drunk that he doesn't remember what he was doing. Now you realize there is a real recipe for disaster, as we like to say. And so, should he have gotten more than a year probation? Absolutely. Now, the judge might have been thinking, gee, if I lock this guy up, it's going to destroy his career. You know something? There are ramifications for your actions. I know people who've lost their jobs because of drunk driving charges and what happened to him in court. I actually know people who've lost their jobs. So if he lost his job because of this, he wouldn't be the first person. He would not be the first person to lose his job in a situation like that. So just to be clear, because I know people right now are arguing with what I said because they didn't understand it. Happens every video. What happened to him is what would happen to the average person in the exact same situation. However, I don't think that he should have been treated as an average person. The judge should have thrown the book at him. Should have. The judge didn't. And, you know, as a representative of the legal community, I can't explain that. And you know, it shouldn't have happened. So, in my opinion, he should have gotten worse. But like I said, what he got was the typical thing that most people would get in a situation. My argument is that he's not most people. He's the sheriff. And again, got so drunk that he doesn't know what he's doing, had weapons in his car, and when the cops showed up, the state troopers, was uncooperative. And so he's setting a bad example in a whole bunch of ways. So, Joe, thanks for sending the update from WWMT. Allie Jenner, John wrote it. St. Joseph County Sheriff sentenced to 1 year probation for alleged drunk driving. Questions, comments, put them below. And the t-shirt is for a band. It's actually a guy, but he has a band. I saw them play recently. Fabulous music. They are from Michigan. So there you go. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Actions speak louder than tweets.